Welcome to the Resistering Show with your host, Tiffany.
Trina.
Tanya.
Join us as we uncover, discover, and recover together. Today's topic is money. And we all have a relationship with money, and some of it's good and some of it's not so good. And years ago, I had attended like this online workshop, and it was about money and time. And it was for my business that I was doing at the time with essential oils, doTERRA. And it's funny because I just pulled out this book, all of my notes. And one of the things that jumped out at me as I'm working through my relationship right now with money is to do a couple things. And I do journal, and specifically the tools that was recommended was to actually start journaling about the topics that are limiting beliefs for me. And some of those, because we're sisters, we had the same kind of experience, and it may have manifested a little bit differently. So some of these faulty beliefs, I guess, in money, and to write them down and to write the story down, but then rewrite the story of how I believe about my relationship with money now. And the other thing that came out of this little webinar, so there are 3 things that most people struggle with. The first is money, time, and our physical body. The interesting thing about those 3 things are none of them are spiritual. They're all energetic, but they're of this world. And so we had mentioned previously like 3rd dimension, 5th dimension, all of that, but they're not spiritual. They are of this earth. So I think today we want to talk about like our relationship with money and how that started, and what is our limiting beliefs on money and how we feel about those beliefs today. So that's just kind of my start of it. But I have this affirmation that I wrote down years ago, and it is, I have a strong relationship with time and money because the Lord blesses me with both, because I am able to help others. And it was kind of funny. I was like, that was great. I wrote that in 2016. That's like the theme year, 2016. And as Tonia and Trina and I were talking before the podcast, I got really mad. I was like, why do I even need to write this affirmation? This is ridiculous, right? Because my relationship with money is so dysfunctional that I have to write an affirmation about it. But I'm okay with it, but it was just kind of funny.
Yeah, Tiff, I have an affirmation that I say now, and it's all good things come to me quickly and easily because I'm worthy. Should I get mad at that one too?
Yes.
Yes. Why do I not
irritating.
feel worthy? Why do I have to tell myself I'm worthy? Some people are born and just know that they're loved and they're precious just because they're born. This is something I've been growing into. I've had to learn that I'm of value. Classic codependent behavior. I'm not worth anything. My needs don't matter. I can't be happy unless you're happy. And we were also talking before the podcast, to kind of get in the flow about our childhood. And we were born into a family where money was used as power, control, and what was the third one?
Guilt.
And guilt. Right. Power, control, and guilt. And we see that even in society. If someone has a lot of money, they feel like they're allowed to do whatever they want to do. And people call them Mr. or Miss. And I'm like, where does that come from? Like, talking about respect just because I'm a human being. It has nothing to do with money, but we are in that plane. And learning that money is energy and money makes my life easier. If I am constantly in survival mode, and I don't know how I'm going to pay my light bill, how I'm going to pay for food, how I'm going to survive, I can't really grow. So having money really frees me up to do things like a podcast, to be creative, to love my children, to not be in fear 24/7. And these are things that I've been learning. I wasn't inherently born with those beliefs that I'm precious and I deserve abundance just because I'm a human being. I had to grow into that.
So do you think that you weren't born with those beliefs, or do you think those beliefs could have gotten like kind of mushed around? Because I think some of it's our own selves, like in our environment. So there was something that I wanted to do also to help with my relationship with money. And that was this meditation that has to do with ancestral healing. And I've done it in the past with some other things and to help heal the past, present, and even the future. So that's my next thing that I'm going to do is an ancestral healing, because I think you had said something like, just because your mom puts you on the potty backwards to go pee and you're 50 years old, still sitting down backward on the potty.
Shame on you.
Correct. So that we've had some realizations about money. And like I said, because we're all in the same household, even though like they manifest differently, they still really do manifest exactly the same.
Yeah. One time I was in front of my house. I was out walking in the road and I found $20. And this was back like in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not a lot of money, but I was like happy. I was excited. I was like, $20, cool. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I started looking around. I was like, well, what if somebody else needed it? In my brain, I was just like, and I did have that moment of doubt. I was like, well, what if somebody else needed it? I don't see anybody else around. But then I'm like, no, that it's okay. It was meant for you. If you found it, there's nobody else around. But I had that moment of self-doubt, because I was excited. And then I was like, well, wait a minute.
It's not my money. It's somebody else's. They lost it. What if they needed that $20 to put gas in it?
And
Is that guilt?
It's crazy. I mean,
Right.
just crazy thinking, it's $20, but still, hey, but that thoughts creep in and.
Yeah, those signs come. And what I've been learning is that the universe starts to entrust me with money. And it's my responsibility to care for that money. And we all read a bunch of spiritual books, and we have a big pile of books right now in front of us all about, manifesting money, becoming rich, the law of divine compensation, creating money. These are just a couple of the titles I'm looking at right now. And all that's well and good, but if I don't believe it underneath that I'm worthy and that there is enough for everybody to have more than enough, then even if I manifest it, I'm going to feel guilty. I'm going to give it away. Anytime I would accumulate some money, I would get rid of it because I felt guilty for having it. And it really wasn't a healthy relationship. And the universe is like, we keep giving you money and you keep throwing it away.
Right.
And yes, we need money to, keep things going and energy flowing and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't care for it. I didn't mindfully make a decision on how I wanted to spend that money. Was it something that benefited me or my family or even for pleasure? I just felt like I had to throw it out. And, as I'm caring more for my money, it's a lot of mindfulness and I'm unpacking those beliefs as a child. And we saw that modeled in our family of origin where our mother hoarded and there was never enough and she didn't want to share. And our father, if he had it, he was throwing it up in the wind, and it would always come back. But you can never feel secure because you're always afraid when you don't have it. So a lot of lessons for me are about trust, but faith without works is dead. And so a few years ago, I finally felt like it was time to step up and take responsibility for my finances. I had always kind of ignored it, wasn't ready to face it. So I called my sponsor and I was like, hey, guess what? I'm ready for some help with my finances. I'm in a good spot, but if I keep going, I'm just going to mess everything up. And I don't want to do that. And she said, well, the first thing I want you to do is write down all of your assets, everything you owe, all the bills that you pay. And I said, oh, I've already got that. And she's like, what? That usually takes people years to do. And I said, oh, I've been sitting on this for years and I wasn't ready to face it. So one of the sayings I love is, if all my denial were stripped away at one time, I would die of shock. So I had a lot of other things I needed to work through. And it seems like romances and finances are some of the later things that I can handle. And so that's what's been going on right now, is actually working on finances, but I actually have to take action. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but big lessons.
For me, when the jobs that I've had in the past have always been, I did try the corporate level, office, and I found out that I hated sitting down in a chair and being tied. So then what I found I could do, it was always low paying jobs because I did not like the corporate world. I did not like to be sitting in a desk doing paperwork constantly. That was not my thing. So caring for people, I started to get into that, and that does not pay any money. So I was always scrambling around and kind of living paycheck to paycheck and never really took the time to care about myself and try to even, what I couldn't grasp was, even if I saved 1% of my money in my 403B, I'm not going to miss that. You kind of work with what you have. And then now as I'm in my 50s, and my dad is now starting to talk to me about money and finances and saving and willing to help. Whereas when we were growing up, there was none of that talk for me anyway. Or if they talked, maybe I was mad about it and had a block because it was always, you do this for this. If you don't listen to me about this. And so there was always a negative connotation with it. And now it's like I seem to build up money. Money does come and money does flow, but then it always seems to go, my car has a problem, medical expenses, whatever. And then it all seems to be depleted, and then I build it back up. And so I have to work through that, because that is something that is stuck in my brain. I'm like, why does it keep happening? Why? So that is something that I need to work on with myself, where I can be like, well, that's okay. It keeps coming, and it will continue to build up and up and up more as I respect the money and myself. And I have that belief that it'll still, that will happen, that it will continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and get bigger, and I will be okay. But as Trina said, you have to take action. And that is the hardest part to do, is to actually, you can talk about it and sit and read these books and dream about it and write down your affirmations. But the hardest part is to actually take the step.
That is a perfect setup for my story, Tonia. Thank you for that introduction. So probably about 3 or 4 years ago, when I had finally decided I was the problem and I needed to face my issues around finances, and I had always kind of pushed it away because I didn't feel strong enough to look at it. So I had called my sponsor, finally said it out loud that I was willing to take some action and uncover what was underneath to all my self-limiting beliefs and family of origin issues and my unworthiness and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I was reading a book called Becoming Rich by Genevieve Davis. And in this book, it's all about magic, and it's all about manifesting, and it's all about beliefs and
all
change.
That fun stuff.
Yes,
all
changing
that.
your beliefs.
I can just do this in my mind.
Right, and I can write it down 30 times, hop on one foot 12 times, do 5 jumping jacks, and boom, it's going to appear.
And it does work a little bit.
It does work like that. Right. So I'm reading this book, and I go have coffee with a friend of mine, and she was a business owner, and she was in a marriage, and she always attracted money, and it always just fell through her hands. And she finally was ready to face it. So she met with a financial coach, and she told me that her financial coach was having her do things like take your credit card debt and put it on a no interest credit card for 18 months. And then she had her, pay back her business and just do a lot of healthy, practical things. But she also had her set up for accounts. One was a savings account. One was, funny money, whatever you wanted to spend it on, blah, blah, blah. So she's telling me how she had to set up accounts and do specific things.
But are these actual accounts?
Yes. You have separate accounts.
True separate accounts, like different banks, or?
No, the same bank. You can have 4 checking accounts in one bank. So anyway, I told my friend, and she goes, I can give you my financial person's name. She's amazing. She'll help you really clear all this up. And I said, oh no. I am reading Becoming Rich by Genevieve Davis, and I am manifesting, and I've got this. I don't need to do any of that. And I said, oh, and I've committed to do whatever the book tells me to do. And at this point, I felt pretty safe with that because so far it was like writing things 20 times. I'll be damned. I get home, I open the book. The next chapter is like, all that manifesting was well and good and it's purposeful, but now it's time to take action. First thing you do is you're going to open 4 separate accounts. One is going to be frivolous. The second account is going to be for others. The third account is going to be for big purchases. Say you need to buy a washing machine or a computer, you're going to take a trip. You're not going to put that on credit cards anymore. You're going to save up for it. And the fourth account can be anything you want. It could be saving for retirement. It could be an emergency fund. It could be, a second home. It could be anything. And I was like, geez, like, man.
So did you have to call your sponsor back?
Yeah, I really didn't even need to. Like, at that point, I was like, you're really funny, universe. So I was like, all right. So I actually went and did that. And it said the goal is to put 10% of your take-home pay in each of those accounts. But it said if you're living paycheck to paycheck, do 1%, do anything. And so I started doing, a small percentage. And I did start having money to pay for those big purchases. And I did start, a haircut for us and a highlight, that's $200.
Jeez, yeah.
So I started using my frivolous account for that. But the biggest joy was the 4 others. There's an animal rescue who's a small animal sanctuary, and that is their money. And she always thanks me when I send her money. And I'm like, you don't understand. This isn't my money. This is for you. And she's like, you always know when we need like $800 for a surgery. And I said, no, you're taken care of just like I'm taken care of. The universe and God finds ways to give me what I need. And this is your money. It's not even mine. You don't need to thank me. But that is just like an amazing feeling. But then, and I haven't done this yet, she said for the next 30 to 90 days, I can't remember what it was. I'll have to look it up. We want you to live completely frugally, which means anything that's not a contract you cancel. So that means Netflix or your gym or your lawn service, everything. She said, we want you to buy the best quality, cheapest food. You don't go out to eat. You walk places. That's how you're going to get your workout. Let's really see if you can live on 60% of your take-home pay. So give it a shot. So I'll let you know when I'm finally ready to do that.
30 days or 90 days.
Whatever. I've got the book right here. It's time to pull it back out.
I think it's 30 days.
Yeah,
right?
30 sounds good. Yeah.
I'll take 30.
30 hours?
So taking action has really helped. And what Tonia had said, I will accumulate and then it will all, get paid out. But I'm trusting now. And I do need like 50 signs from the universe. I'm like, I know you sent me 12 feathers and 32 ladybugs, and I had a psychic reading and they told me you are fine, but stop spending more than you have. And I was like, okay. So I am taking action.
Yeah. And when you guys were both talking, Tonia, you were even talking about kind of a poverty mentality of, and it's not just money, it's everything. Like there is abundance. And I feel that same concept. Like sometimes I feel like I have this poverty mentality. And I want to say one of my oracle cards I picked, it had to do with this poverty mentality. And it is such an ingrained like belief system. Like you're talking about low paying jobs because not that you weren't worth it, but the fact that you couldn't sit in front of a computer, for 12 hours a day or whatever, that there's no money in the jobs that you were doing. And I think that's like a poverty mentality, like a self-limiting belief. And it's funny because the other day I was writing some things out and it was about money because we were going to do this episode and manifesting money and the fact that we're in our podcast looking at monetizing and our businesses that we've started. Trina is a health coach and I have starting my Reiki business and of course, Tonia is working currently, but also she is manifesting money also. And, as I was writing down and I was like, oh, yes, the money that is going to come to us and to me, some of that has to do with the fact that just like what Trina was saying, that there is money that I want to use to support causes that I believe in. So I love that idea of starting up 4 different accounts because there are things that I want to support. And it was funny because as I was doing this journaling, my friend Doris called me and we got to talking and I was like, oh yeah, that's another cause. Her cause too, because I believe in her cause also. But it was just funny, like when you were talking about similar to me, like the jobs that I've chosen, I was like, oh, they don't make a lot of money. And again, it's that poverty mentality. Like, I'm only going to make this amount, but it doesn't really matter. There are people on YouTube and things, they unbox stuff, like they buy stuff, they unbox it, people watch them and they make money. I'm so confused.
Sign us up.
It's like I buy shit all the time, but I don't want anybody seeing what I'm unboxing, so it's hidden.
What are you buying?
I'm kidding.
Okay.
Like, because I still have a spouse, right?
Where you kind of leave the stuff in the trunk and you say, oh, I've had this for a while.
Yeah, how have you had that for a while? Like, what does that mean? Like 13 hours. But that's what I'm talking about, not the stuff I'm actually buying. But I don't really, to be honest with you, like I don't shop the way I used to shop. And anyway, but it was just kind of funny. Yes. So the money is there. So if we want to do some unboxing, I don't know. But
yeah, Tiff, I appreciate that because, Tonia, when you talked about taking a low-paying job, I think you realized early on that your sanity and your self-care is not worth doing something that's so soul-sucking that you just can't survive in this world. And I realized that when my kids grew up and I decided to re-enter the workforce, my out-of-college job was in finance and I was an investment manager and I could never do that now. I just couldn't. It would just eat me alive. I just would not fit the amount of hours you have to work, the pressure, the fakeness. Not that everyone is. There's plenty of people that are really of service. And I learned that I have to take care of myself, and that's at any cost. And one of my mentors, I love what she said to me. I was complaining about paying for health insurance. And I was saying, maybe as a self-employed person, I said, well, maybe what I'll do is put that $600 a month in a savings account. And she said, so if you break your leg tomorrow, what's even a year's worth of $600 going to do for you? And I said, not a thing. And she said to me, I have found that there is no price too high to pay to relieve my anxiety. Because I knew I would be up at 2:00 in the morning worried that something serious would happen and it would wipe out anything I had. And I was like, Trina, this is not the hill to die on. This is not where you pick your battles. Just pay for that insurance. Yes, that system is broken, but right now there's other things you need to work on. And the truth is I would take a low-paying job over some corporate job that just depleted me to where I have another autoimmune that's going to get triggered, or I go into a deep depression, or all of a sudden I want to hit a tree again. I can't afford to be like that. And so it's taken a long time to come to that. And I don't know, Tonia, if you had that realization early on, but it took me a long time to get there.
For me, it's sometimes when I do work, it's like by the time I get up, I get dressed, I get ready, and I go to work, do my job. But by the time I come home, I'm just like, I don't have not time, but the energy for anything else. It's like my job has sucked everything out of me. And that's, I guess when I'm there, I give it all, my whole self to it. And it's hard for me to get, if I wanted more money or a different job to be like, okay, now I can do it. Cause I'm just tired. It just kind of sucks everything out of me. And it takes all I can do just to be like, okay, I want to clean the house or I want to cook dinner, or instead of just sitting
But
there
do
chilling
you really?
out.
That's what I realized. Like, I really don't want to do those
Right.
things.
And that also shows us something's wrong with our system. Our children in school all day, they don't have, they're run ragged and they're there all day. You're at a job, maybe you're fulfilled, but most people aren't. You don't have any balance. And so even doing this podcast and setting up our separate businesses, we're trying to actually have fun and be passionate and be creative. And at 10 o'clock at night, we come up with some content or we have an idea. And isn't that what it's supposed to be about? We're stepping into that fifth dimension. And all that means is where, you can manifest and things do come to you. And you have to be careful of what your thoughts are because, they do occur, everything we think of. And when Tonia, you had talked about by the time you got home, you're too tired, realizing for me that when I go spend money on something, that's actually time that I'm exchanging for that money. And so if I go waste all my money, which is something that I'm definitely working on not doing now, if I go waste all that, that's all that time I exchange. So now I'm going to have to keep working. I'm going to have to work harder just to pay for all that crap. And it keeps me in the cycle. So no one did that to me. I did that to myself. And finally starting to wake up, but also to accept it and say thank you. And you found that $20. I find pennies and nickels, and before I would throw change away.
And I would find it.
Oh, right. And I was so disrespectful. I was really disrespectful. And I don't do that anymore. I say thank you for this because if they can trust me with a nickel, one day I'm going to find a $20 bill.
Yeah. When I used to go to work, sometimes after I'd finish work, I do love to eat out. And that's like spends a lot of money when I do that. I do know that, especially now. But I was only making like $13 an hour, and I'd go out to eat after I'd get off work. And I'm like, okay, this meal cost me $15 to $20. I said, I just worked and I've worked for 4 hours today. I've just used half my paycheck for the day, and in my brain, I would actually calculate that. And when my bill would come, I'm like, wow, I just used half my day's pay, so it's like crazy.
That's a good thing to be aware of because then you can act like someone who cares for their money. But I used to go out to eat always after work because I needed to decompress and I would read my book and I couldn't just walk into my household. It felt too much. So I would spend a half an hour to 45 minutes by myself. And when I changed my, self-talk and it was like, yes, that was worth it. Like I decided that was something worthwhile. And Tiffiney, you had really helped me with a belief. We had, done some things like, where do I want to go? What do I want? And we're doing this podcasting seminar. We're working with a coach so that we can be better at this, but it's fun. It's creative. We're learning about ourselves and we just started it, but it was $800 a piece. And Tiffiney helped because she's like, where do I want to go? She's like, Costa Rica, but I want to go to a play. I want to go do a Reiki workshop. I want to do this podcast seminar. And so to be like, this is investing in me, but it's also a creative endeavor. It's, choosing that rather than going on a couple of shopping sprees. If the three of us went away for a weekend, we would spend 3 times that. So I had to go through that. And I was like, no, this actually is a good use of funds and energy. And I'm excited about it. So you may see us improve as we go along or not.
Or you'll be like, wow, why did they waste that $800 a piece? They should have stayed the way they were.
Then we will let you know who we did the seminar with. And anyway, but it's funny, you guys were talking about like ebb and flow and the money that you get just sort of like goes back out and not being able to save and the security and all of that. And I just remember when I did that webinar and they were talking about money as energy and time as just energy and it's pouring rain right now. This is okay. So I'm just going to tell you, this is how spirit and how I channel. So I was about to talk about the ebb and the flow and water. And I mean, it is pouring rain and this water that is energy. And when I was doing this channeling session the other day, I was asking how Mother Earth takes care of us because, we are Mother Earth's children and she takes care of us. And sometimes we don't take care of Mother Earth. But because we are made up of water and because the earth is made up of water, we all seek some sort of water. And like I said, it's pouring rain right now. And we go to the ocean. Might go to a spring. You might go to the lake. You might go to a creek. But most humans will seek out some sort of water source. And so the information that I was getting, even from one of the oracle cards that I chose, was that water, it allows the energy to kind of flow through us. And like if you go to the ocean and you let the wave like crash on top of you, like your emotions. And so when I look at money and I look at my limiting beliefs and all of that, and it kind of like is a wave on top of me, and the guilt and the power and all of that kind of crashes on top of me. But if I allow the money to flow through me, if I allow the belief system to flow through me and not crash on top of me, the water or the money or the energy, if I allow that emotion that I'm feeling about money to flow through me versus crash on top of me, it's much more healing. It's much more empowering to me. So I'm just looking at kind of, you're talking about this ebb and flow. You keep talking about the money flows out of me. I build my money up and then it just flows out. Well, is that bad? Is that a bad thing? I don't know if it's a bad thing, but to say I also will have enough and the abundance is always there. But I thought it was just interesting that we kept using that term ebb and flow.
Yeah, and that's truly been it. And I also now remember just to say thank you. I mean, I've been very cared for in my life, and all of us have. And looking back, I can see how all of these things that have happened have been to serve to help me grow and help me wake up. And I was made aware not too long ago, I'm vegan, and some of my food changes have been made because of extreme health issues. But vegan was because of compassion for animals. Mm-hmm. And it just really took this monkey off my back. It made me walk on the earth and not have to pretend things weren't happening. And it just kind of released me. But I couldn't do it until I was ready because I had to just pretend that we're not doing harm. And so I want to do the least amount of harm possible. But I couldn't do any of that till I started to care for myself and have some self-love. So there was a lot to unwind before I could care for anything else. But then what happens is I'm listening to this webinar or, someone online, and she was talking about women and money. And she said, societally, we just turn our power, and you talk about that a lot, Tiff. Mm-hmm. We turn our power over to other people. We think, oh, it's too confusing for us. I can't understand it, and I don't want to. I want to push it away and put it on someone else. So we turn it over to spouses and parents and financial advisors and get rich quick schemes. And what she said is, you may be invested in things you don't believe in that go against everything your core does not agree with. I might be invested in all kinds of companies that do animal testing, and I might be invested in Monsanto. I don't know. I have a mutual fund going on, but I'm too afraid to look at it right now because once I know, I can't unknow. And I had a conversation with a friend, and I had never heard the term ethical investing. And she goes, oh, yeah, I looked into that, but you earn a very low rate of return or no return. And so for me right now, it's always that humbling. It's always that, just do your best. It gives you compassion for other people. It's like, I might be doing this, but there's a lot more for me to wake up to. And it's okay that I'm not ready to tackle this right now, that I'm not ready to really look at it, but I'm talking about it, which means it's brought to my consciousness. So some of that denial has lifted. So the next steps might to be take a look at what I'm invested in. Am I okay with that? You know, are they abusing their workers? Is it destroying someone's environment? Are they testing on animals? You know, what's going on? What do I believe in? And it really is just for my growth and for me to wake up. And that's kind of been the lesson in money. And so romance and finance. I finally have a spiritual love relationship at 51 years old. I met him 3 years ago. I was finally able to start being vulnerable and intimate in a love relationship. And, you know, the money and the relationship seem to have happened at the same time, but that's, 15 years into recovery and therapy and 12-step programs and all kinds of self-work.
So the uncovering, I think, for all three of us, talking about that family of origin and being able to recover from that, I think we still have work to do. And I definitely know that I certainly have work to do. But I know Tonia and I were talking, and Trina were talking about those limiting beliefs from that family of origin and not talking as a family about money. And I still have young children, so being able to speak to them about money and finances and not saying, oh, we don't have any money, and that excuse that a lot of times, like, I don't have any cash with me or something. I can tell my children I cannot buy that because I don't have any cash, because I really don't want to buy that for them. But the other piece of that is, just for instance, like I take them to the dollar store sometimes and I tell them, okay, you have $10 a piece to spend. So they have a cart of stuff that they have to then go, okay, I can buy 10 items. I pay the tax for them, so I don't make them buy only 9 items, whatever. So just to try to teach them a little bit about money. But Tonia, gosh, I know you were specifically talking about how it wasn't talked about in the house. And I would like to know, like, what advice that a parent can give to their children. I mean, you know what I mean?
I need to interject.
Okay.
Because I was taught I don't need to necessarily teach my children. I need to work through my shit. Okay. Like when I get through all my stuff, they actually see. They see me communicating with my partner. They see me making decisions. They see me actually including them in those decisions. And so I can try and teach them all they want.
Right.
That didn't help me as a kid that here you have $10. Well, I spent the $10 before, it was even warm. Right. That didn't matter. What I saw were two people who weren't on the same page. What I saw were two people who didn't respect each other. And then all my relations were the same way. They were passive aggressive.
It's modeling.
And I can't blame our parents, but the fact is, until I unpack that, I can't grow. And so I have 2 kids, and, my daughter has great relationship with money and food, and she did not get that from me. She really, unpacked her own stuff, and she saw what I did, and she saw my struggles, and she saw me growing, and we had real conversations. And, sometimes she criticized me. She was like, ooh, why don't you? And I'm like, I'm working on it, right. But it was really, I needed to work on me. It didn't matter what I said to them. It mattered who I was and what I did. And I remember a friend of mine, she was feeling really bad about being in recovery from drugs and alcohol. And her therapist said, kids with parents in recovery get the best things. And what he meant by that was they saw adults having to work through all their issues, say they're sorry, change their behavior, maybe scrape together the light bill and keep at it and keep taking action and keep, self-love. And I know you're working on yourself all the time. And we see those fruits of our work. So it's not necessarily teaching them. It's I change, I grow, and there's a huge ripple effect. And you talked about it in Ancestral Healing. I end up changing the past, present, and future. I mean, I change it all when I grow. And that's what we're doing here today.
Right.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but I do think some children, because we are talking about children, and because by the time you get to be adults, that some children you have to take it on a case by case basis, because some children might need you to hold their hand a little bit, and others might just be able to, as Kat, just watch you and be like, oh, wow, so I hear what you're saying, but I sort of disagree, because me as a person, I think I need a little bit of hand holding. And then once I get the hang of it, then I'm like, okay, you can stop preaching to me. I can go, I know I can find this book. I can find this person. And as Trina has said many times, you take what's presented to you and you just keep following the crumbs. But me, I do I need a little push. I need a little kick in the butt at times, you know.
You need the overall showing, but you also need the practical work. And so I think it goes hand in hand. Like if I'm telling you one thing, but I'm doing something completely different, then that's where the confusion, it doesn't matter. Like I know...
Right. If you gave your kids $10 and this is all you can spend and we can't spend more, and then you go blow all your money, they see what you're doing. So what are you really teaching them? And I know you're working and you're not doing that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I still how did I still spend $60 at the stupid, dollar store? But no, I hear both of you guys, and because those of us with children and also have like that mindset of being a child, sometimes parents feel our children are more worth it than we are ourselves. So it is, for me, it is changing the way I view myself and understanding that it's okay that I get a new pair of shoes and that I get a new, jacket for myself or whatever it is, because I'm still doing it for my children. But modeling it with my husband, us on the same page, not bickering about money, and understanding. My husband and I had a whole conversation about, money and our relationship with money. And it did shift our understanding with each other too, where he's coming from, where I'm coming from. So having that understanding is huge. And then also our children can understand and hear those conversations. But like as Tonia was saying, my daughter's very similar to Kat, and talking about, her food relationship and her money relationship. She saves her money and then, she can spend $7 and be extremely happy. Whereas my son, he's like, I need $100 water gun. It's like, no, you don't. We're chuckling, right? But it's true. But understanding that children are very different and they need the modeling, but they also sometimes need that specific hand holding over and over and over again until they kind of get it. And I think I'm probably one of those.
And I do agree with that. Like in high school, did I really need geometry? No. I could have used budgeting, or I could have used how to set up a business, or, how to file taxes. Those would have been really hand-holding relevant things for me to learn.
Even organizational skills. Those are some huge ones.
Yes.
But I would say geometry is really huge, because when I was doing my arts and crafts, I was like, damn it, how can I get this angle right? It was really annoying. And I was like, shit, I just cannot think of it.
So, this has been a really great conversation. We have a lot to say on this, and there's more, and we're growing and we're learning, and we're still in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And it's just something that we've been gifted with, this time together. And so, we've come to expect miracles and synchronicities to happen, and changing the way we think and the way we speak and the way we treat ourselves and what gets into our energy field, toxicities. We've really, worked on that. And now we're actually taking actions, each of us, to change. So we don't just wish we had money. We're actually working for it. And not that you have to work so hard and you have to slave away. We're doing things that fill us up and, we feel creative and we feel like giving back and we're growing together and finding out things about each other. And, if you can do what you do anyway and get paid for that, I mean, what a gift, because then that frees us up to take vacations, to give back to charities, to, do all these things for personal growth, take seminars, take classes, get coaching, spend that time together. And so it's truly been a gift.
Yeah, I love this whole topic. So thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. We look forward to you joining us next time as we continue to uncover, discover, and recover.